Rajas is an animalistic state. An animal is far more aware than a vegetable, but it cannot be concerned about nature, about environment, about your spiritual status. Sattva is the human state. A tamasic person acts in such a way that he harms himself and others. Typical examples of tamasic actions are drinking, driving, reckless driving, smuggling, terrorism, all kinds of activities which cause great harm not only to themselves but to others as well. You can destroy yourself if you want, but you have no right to impact others adversely. Rajas is a state where under normal circumstances is okay, but when opposed, he causes great harm to others. It's like when you are opposed, you become antagonistic towards the person who opposes you. You don't even think whether the other person is right or wrong. A sattvic person is one who benefits all of humanity. His very presence inspires others to come up with their best. How do you remove these three? In order to remove tamas, you need a great deal of effort and time. In the 3rd chapter of the Gita, the tamasic quality is referred to as a fetus in a womb. It takes time and effort. Rajas takes effort to remove. It's referred to as dust on a mirror. You need to take a cloth and wipe it. Sattva, they say, is like smoke around a fire. It goes by itself. So once you establish yourself in sattva, then you need not make any great effort. Effortlessly it goes away. Now we come to the most important point. When does it manifest within us? All the three qualities have a distinct time of day when they manifest in your mind. Tamas manifests only after sundown. Rajas between sunrise and sunset. And sattva between 4 and 6 a.m. You got that? Most of us don't even see the light of day before 6 a.m. So in effect, what we're doing is stifling the sattvic qualities in us. Rajas is going on, and we're encouraging tamas. It is so true that the first thing in the morning when you wake up, your mind naturally gravitates towards higher thoughts. It's much easier to concentrate when you wake up early. The moment the sun rises, activity starts. Not only in human beings, the birds come alive, animals come alive, the whole world is alive and bustling. After sunset, what happens? Sundowners start. All indulgences. If you're interested in self-control, you'll find that early morning, of course, you're not indulgent. During the day, you manage. But the moment the sun sets, it's extremely difficult to keep your indulgent tendencies under control. So in ancient India, they woke up at 4 a.m., between 4 and 6 a.m. was referred to as Brahma Muhurta. That means at that time you can do anything without looking at the, Muhurta. Between sunrise and sunset, Rajas was kept alive and Tamas was stifled. Because at 7:30 in the evening, when everyone got home and freshened up, there was a session of half an hour of bhajans, music, uplifting music, spiritual music. As Rabindranath Tagore said, music washes away the dust from your soul. So true. And then there was early dinner and off to bed. So the tamas was stifled. Today, it's late nights. Every day you're partying. Some reason you give yourself to party. And then they come excessive drinking, excessive smoking, excessive eating, excessive everything. In tamas, you're obsessed with yourself, and your vision of the world is highly myopic. In Rajas, you're attached and possessive. It's like you have a blinkered vision of life. Sattva is the state where you're a visionary. You're way beyond your time. You think of things which will benefit humanity 50, 100, 200 years from now. Tamas is a state of inactivity, where you're resistant to activity. A tamasic person, when you go to him and say, why don't you do this? He'll give you any number of excuses why he should not do it. Rajas is a state of ceaseless activity. For no reason at all, you're running around. You stop the person and say, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? What do you want to achieve? No answer. Sattva is the state where you're transactive. That's the state of a poet, a philosopher, an author, a scientist. They're apparently inactive, but their contribution to the world is maximum. In Tamas, you have partial knowledge. In Rajas, you have knowledge of the world with your gross intellect. In Sattva, you have knowledge of the beyond, the transcendental. What a wonderful state to be in. So, the sattvic state is one in which your knowledge, your wisdom is at its highest. A tamasic person's thinking is topsy-turvy. A tamasic person thinks right is wrong and vice versa. A rajasic person is confused. You meet confused people in life. They don't know whether to study here or to go abroad. And then after they finish their studies, they don't know whether to marry or not to marry, whether to start business or do something else. Complete confusion. A sattvic person has clear thinking and a definite focus on Atman. The intellect of the tamasic person is dull, fanatic. Particularly religious fanaticism comes from Tamas. Rajas is a state where your intellect is throbbing with ideas. So you're manipulating, you're maneuvering, you're using your intellect, but only to gain profit, pleasure for yourself. Sattva is the state of contemplation. It's wonderful when a person is in Sattva. The other day, I went to see a renowned musician in hospital. He was in the ICU in critical condition. His heart was functioning to barely 20% of normal capacity, and he was on the respirator. So when I went to see him, he wanted to speak to me. So he pulled off the respirator, and you know what he was saying? He wasn't complaining about his condition. He wasn't. Usually when you're in hospital, you have nothing better to do than complain about the doctors and the nurses and the treatment and the food there. You know what he was talking to me about? He was talking about the effect of music on people and how it helps you to purify yourself. He gave me a lecture there. I ran out of there because I was afraid that something would happen to him. But this is it. And he recovered. Tamas, the consistency. A tamasic person consistently resists change. A rajasic person is consistent in the pursuit of desires. And a sattvic person is consistent in the pursuit of the higher, culminating in Atman. So, summarizing briefly, Sattva is the state of nirmala. Mala means dirt. Nirmala, no dirt. Dirt of vasanas. So what happens when you don't have vasanas is you have clarity of thinking. And your perception is fantastic. Like Bernard Shaw once gave the definition of a cigarette. You know what the definition of a cigarette is? He said, a cigarette is a little bit of tobacco rolled in a piece of paper with fire at one end and a fool at the other. What perception! Prakashakam, luminous, That is the state when you are creative, you come up with brilliant ideas. Like Shakespeare talks about it in The Merchant of Venice. Shylock, the moneylender, when he gave a loan, knowing fully well that the recipient is not capable of repaying the loan, he was a, what do you call that now? Recovery agent. So his condition was, if you're not able to repay the loan, I am authorized to take a pound of flesh from your body. And Portia, the young, beautiful lawyer who is representing the victim, appears in court and says, yes, you can take that pound of flesh, but by your own condition, you cannot take an ounce more or an ounce less. Shylock was finished. That's clarity of thinking. So, see, in other words, friends, in the world, there is no problem to which there is no solution. You don't find a solution because you don't have clarity, because you're not operating out of sattva. In other words, a sattvic person will not face problems in the world. Yes, his problem is how to get to that state of enlightenment, which is tough. But in the world, it's effortless. Anamayam, it's curative. The power of sattva is curative. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Hotel Rwanda, where one man saves the lives of hundreds of people, has the courage to stand up and save the lives of hundreds of people. This is sattva. During the independence movement, a band of a few people, inspired people, sattvic people, unshackled us from the British Empire. Not just India, but all the British colonies got freedom after that. So, but sattva also binds. How does sattva bind? The attachment to happiness, attachment to knowledge. Isha speaks of that. He says, those who are attached to the world, those who are reveling in the world, are in blinding darkness. But those who are reveling in the higher, in knowledge, are in greater darkness. And when you first read that, you wonder, how does he say that? It's because the attachment to the higher, the happiness, to knowledge is so strong because it fulfills you that much more. It's very difficult to get out of it. That is why you must maintain your objectivity right from the word go. Understand that the spiritual path and all the happiness and knowledge that it gives you is relative, is only a means to the end. And the end is beyond the world, dvandvatita, beyond the pairs of opposites. Rajas is characterized by raga, passion, trishna, thirst. A rajasic person is always thirsting for what he does not have. You might have plenty, but you want one more. On my flight the other day back from New York, person sitting next to me was a young man in his 30s. And he came across and started chatting, because long flight, what can you do? How much can you read? So he came to chat, and I asked him, what do you do? He went to New York, and then he's coming to Bombay, then he's going to Bangalore, then he's going to Tokyo, then he's... When he told me about it, I felt giddy. This is it. What is motivating him is thirst for more conquest, more money, more power, more companies, more this, more that. And sangha, attachment to what you have. So you're finished. In other words, the result is ceaseless activity. And you're caught up in this ceaseless activity, so as a result, your health declines, your family relationships go down the tube, everything goes downhill. And at the end of it all, you don't even achieve as much. Because let's face it, the human system has a certain limit. You can't push it beyond that limit. Rajas binds through attachment to action. So weekdays you're running around from place to place. Weekends you're running to chill out. In any American city you go, Friday evening, all roads are blocked. Everybody wants to go out of the city for the weekend. Sunday evenings, again the same torture back home. Monday morning, they're tired after the weekend. During the week, of course you're tired. Tamas is characterized by ignorance, delusion, and it binds through pramada, carelessness, alasya, sloth, nidra, sleep. There is no dignity or decorum in tamas. There's the use of crude language, crude behavior, generally disgusting personality. Now, the 4 castes in this country, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, is based not on whether you are the son of a Brahmin or not, but on your guna makeup. Sattva, Rajas and Tamas are like the 3 primary colors. Do you know that there are only 3 colors in the world? But these 3 colors intermingle to create this infinite, beautiful, marvelous variety of colors in the world. So also within us, there are only 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. But the permutations and combinations of the 3 gunas cause this wonderful variety of human beings, in fact, living beings in the world. So what they did was, they broadly classified humanity into 4 distinct categories and gave them the vocations that best suited their nature. So the Brahmanas were predominantly sattvic in nature, and they were extremely valuable to society. So the state took care of their needs, and they weren't doing them a favor because they understood, they wanted them to benefit humanity. They did not want them to waste their valuable resources and energy in making a living. And so all the scientists, the authors, the poets, the philosophers were taken care of by the rajas, the kings at that time. Musicians, artists, painters. Then came the Kshatriyas, who were predominantly rajasic. They were good administrators, they were active, they were given the task of administering the state and looking after protecting them. Kshatriyas. The Vaishyas were those who had more tamas and rajas and less sattva than the Kshatriyas. And the the Shudras were predominantly tamasic in nature. But what is important is that the system allowed every single individual, doesn't matter which caste they belong to rise to the highest level of perfection. And every caste was given their due respect. It is only after the deterioration took place. How did the deterioration take place? It is the Brahmanas who started the whole thing, because they started claiming privileges rather than serving humanity. And then the whole thing slid. And today, caste has become a slur instead of a blessing. Now, when you are predominantly sattvic, what happens? When you are predominantly rajasic, what happens? Let's take a look at chapter 14, 3 verses which speak of that.